What up, everybody? It's the Built Different podcast. Today, just Sean and I, starting a new series, Life in a Startup. And this episode, we're going to be talking about the minimum viable product, MVP. What does that mean? Like, what does it entail? I know, Sean, you weren't present during the time I was kind of going through the MVP phase of the device, but I know you had some kind of questions, and you may not know how it all went down. I've told you stories here and there about it, but I'll just let you shoot some questions off, and at the same time, we're educating the audience about my journey and what they may expect if this is something they want to do.
Yeah, yeah, let's do this. So you mentioned minimum viable product. MVP is what it's known as for short. Do you want to
Yeah.
explain to the viewers what an MVP is and like where that term comes from?
Well, in sports, you have MVP, the most valuable player. This is like kind of the opposite in terms of your technology or your service, or because it can be a product, it can be a service, but it's basically it's your test. It's kind of like a test subject. When you're going through the process of inventing something or creating something or offering something, you want to basically have something that you can use to kind of go through a process of educating yourself, seeing what works, seeing if the idea that you have is feasible, and so it's basically the bare minimum product or service or something that you can kind of get out to somebody or try out for yourself that you can get feedback on and see if it's is this thing going to work. For me, it was more of a feasibility thing. So my MVP, our MVP, which is now our kind of our product now, was more on the feasibility side because, as you know, Sean, and as the audience will know when we show this thing off, is that we didn't know if this thing was actually doable. You know what I mean? When I first had the idea, there was not a lot of it was more research level, and there wasn't like a lot of really anything out there like it. And still to this day, there's nothing really out there like it. There's still a lot of research going on regarding it, but as we said before, we want to be the first to do it, so that's what we're making the push. But yeah, the MVP for me was more of a feasibility check on to see if this crazy thing in my mind could be something that could be produced and marketed and mass produced.
So taking a little bit of a step back, kind of similar thought process is like I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, that every product, every company starts with an idea first, and then the idea molds into eventually a product or service. And
Hmm.
this MVP is would you say that this is a way for people to kind of get from the idea stage to the product like the step in between the idea and the product stage?
Yeah, you kind of identify what the natural progression should be, and keep in mind the MVP is based on the lean business model principle. It's based on lean business model principles, which is like basically not overspending, not overdoing it, and just it's a careful way of doing everything along the way to get to yourself to production, and using the least amount of energy, the least amount of resources possible. To, especially it's valuable when you're bootstrapping, like we have been. Um, but yeah, typically you're gonna have that idea. You're gonna put something on paper on a napkin. If you're that engineer or you're that that tech individual that's building the technology, then you kind of have something that you sketch out, and then what I did in my personal journey, not being a technologist, was I didn't really even have anything on paper. I kind of started off with like a lean business model canvas and built like a business case for what my idea was. And from there, obviously I reached out to Georgia Tech and we're still working with them to this day, thank God. And, I reached out to them, not knowing anything at all and said, hey, I want to do this thing. I want to build this thing. This is my vision. This is my dream. And I listed everything that I wanted to do, the capabilities, and how I wanted the user experience to be, and all these type of things. And luckily, You know, a bunch of I've told the story before. A bunch of graduate students latched onto it, and so I had biomedical engineers, I had mechanical engineers, I had software engineers, um, and two groups of them that wanted to work on it because they thought the product was interesting, and then also too, I guess my speech must have got must have revved their interest, I guess you would say. And so basically, they took it and all the specs that I kind of had, and they built it. It was ugly, because your MVP is not going to be a pretty device or a pretty, it's not going to be something that you take out to the market. It's not going to be something that you show probably to to the consumers or. And I kind of have it, obviously when we start rolling our product, I want to show the kind of lineup from beginning when I had a piece of paper that I mocked to make it look like it was an actual device to, all the way to what we building now. But yeah, they were able to take it, and the beauty of what the MVP is, you learn and you get feedback from potential customers as well. And hey, if it does this, it's a little rough right now, but if it can do these things that I'm saying I wanted to do, would you buy this? And so we had that dynamic set up because these grad students, they for their project, they had to display this at like an expo, engineering expo. So at that point, I was able to kind of sit back, let them talk about what they developed. They had, there was investors, lawyers, other students, family members, just a whole host of people that would come around and look at this, what they developed, and they would, ask questions. And from that point on, we kind of knew we had something because we had a lot of people at our booth. I had a nice setup with a bunch of different things, and they were wearing company shirts, and it was a nice thing. But the MVP at that point was something I learned from at that point that people would buy this. People were interested in it, and that's the main thing you kind of want to get across via your MVP. You learn about it, you learn what people want, you learn what you can, what's feasible, and then you learn if you can actually build a business around it.
And before going too much further into like our product or our MVP and that
Mhm.
that whole process, you were talking about how specifically us, but other people as well will use MVP as a feasibility check.
Yeah.
How, as someone who's done an MVP, I know ours came out pretty good, and like it did change a little bit, and we can get into that afterwards. But um, what would you recommend for someone who tries to do an MVP to check the feasibility and it doesn't necessarily come out great, where like they find out that the thing that they wanted to do isn't necessarily as feasible as they initially thought their idea was? Like, do you have any advice for someone like that?
Yeah, I think every time you get feedback, it's a learning experience. So if it didn't work the first time, you know, you can either retool it or you can just let it go. I think a lot of it is also based on the individual and what their vision is. If they, if that's their vision, this is what they've been wanting to do, they'll find, you'll essentially, if unless it's something ridiculously crazy, like a time machine or something, you'll find a way to make it work. So it's just, for those people that, they did try to do that feasibility check and it didn't work, and maybe people were telling them, I don't really like this. So, you take that feedback and you just retool it and try and rebuild it. And if you had somebody that was helping you build it, kind of similar in my situation, and they didn't do it good enough, find somebody else that can do it. You know what I mean? And find somebody else that may be more capable. And yeah, I would say just don't stop there. You know what I mean? If that's really what you want to do and you have your heart set on it, unless, like I said, unless it's just completely like trash. But if it's if it's feasible up until a point where you realize there's some tweaks and some rehashes that you can kind of do to it, then just keep at it and go back and do another feasibility check and just see what the market and what people are saying.
And another thing that you mentioned too was you had talked about a speech that you had gave and how a lot of students had chosen to work on our team, to work on our MVP.
Hmm.
I know you've kind of told me a little bit about this story and stuff, but you weren't the only person that was presenting an opportunity for students to work with them. There was, not only other startup level companies, but bigger companies there as well, right? That you were kind of competing with to get an MVP project like done and get a team together for.
Yeah, it was an intimidating situation. It was like a the stadium seating like we had it in UCF. It was one of those classrooms. It was like 400 engineers, like all these eyes on me, and here I am. I'm like sitting in between creative guy from Porsche, another guy on the other side of me from Mercedes, another guy from Bechtel, and Bechtel, they did the engineering projects like the Hoover Dam, I believe. They did a bunch of airports, really, really big projects. And, from my standpoint, I'm like, man, all these students are going to want to, pair up with them. Porsche. I mean, I love Porsche. I love Mercedes. I love cars. So I would, I'm like, I would be apt to join that one. But and then there was some other like like kind of startups that had like cool concepts, but my whole claim to them was because not going back to the past, but you remember the I always mix it up the flux capacitor that was being
Yep.
mentioned by that guy, and I had that on the screen, and my slides look like straight trash compared to port. I like Porsche. I went up there and like because I went after the Porsche guy, and I went after I think I went after I believe the Mercedes guy, and I went after a guy that had like this. He had like a gardening project that was really cool. But their slides were like pristine. Porsche had like all the, was like just jazzed up to the T, and like here I am with like this PowerPoint slide with like copy and paste images on it, and one of the images was like a flux capacitor, and I was just like, I told them I was told by somebody that what I was trying to build was a flux capacitor, and I was like, if you believe you can build a flux capacitor and you want to change the world or something like that, then join my team. And that's you know the students were coming up to me and saying, "Man, I like the flux capacitor thing that you mentioned, and like, yeah, I'd like to join your team. I like what you're trying to work on." So that's how that kind of panned out. And from there, what was great about that is that they were also able to draw up white papers. You know what I mean? And we kind of took those, and that's how we formed our patent, because like our provisional patent. So that's before we even went to the expo, we had the provisional patent done, no, the provisional patent done. So we were kind of protected, and I'm always thankful to those students, and I still keep in contact with many of them. But they helped me to basically get my the patent process started, and a lot of the information we were able to kind of fill in because, like I said, I'm not a technologist. And thank you to Roy as well because he was able to take a lot of information, add information as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, that just goes to show that you don't necessarily have to be the biggest company out there, or even the I wouldn't say you weren't prepared, but like the most aesthetically pleasing, presenter out there to get chosen.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a good idea and you're someone who, believes in it and, can convey that in a way that's attractive to other people, then
Mm-hmm.
you can be chosen over a bigger, more successful, potentially, or at least successful at that point, company,
Yeah.
um, which I think is really cool. I think that's part of the story that really hit me when you first told me was like, shit, like they chose you over this company, that company, um, which I'm glad they did because otherwise we would be in a potentially much different spot right now. But
Yeah,
um,
and to kind of touch on what you said, they can choose one of the companies or they could work on their own project as well. But they chose ours, and we had two groups. Like I had one group that came up to me. I'm like, yeah, okay, because they start surrounding everybody whose project they want to work on. And you got to imagine these students also want jobs with these companies after they graduate. So a lot of the projects that they develop, the company likes it. They'll be like, yeah, we'll hire you on, or they like their capabilities, they'll hire them on. So here, little Ricky's walking up there with these shitty PowerPoint slides, and they're like, "Cool, I want to work with you." And a lot of it was the vision that I had, and I may have been a little shaky when I presented the rest of the project, but once I was, because, that trigger point for me is that flux capacitor. We talk about that all the time. And when I said that with confidence and like anger and like probably had fire in my eyes. I'm like, okay, I like that part of what he said there, and I like what the project. So no, it was a blessing, man. It was a real blessing. And then after that group that I met in the classroom, another group emailed me and said, hey, like we're a group of biomedical engineers. We love what you have. Can we work on this? And we have some like cool ideas for it. So that's how it played out. And yeah, it was an amazing time. It was, definitely a catalyst for where we are now, for sure.
And I know we haven't told our viewers too much about our product, and so I don't want to spill the tea or anything like that. But from what you got as a finalized version from the MVP stage to
Yeah.
what we then worked with Georgia Tech and have developed into more of the product stage, or at least the prototype stage
Mm.
in at this point in time, what did you learn from the MVP stage that kind of evolved your thinking for what ended up being our product, and how did that kind of influence you and your thoughts?
Um, One, obviously, I learned that it was possible to do this. Two, like I said at that expo, I was kind of able to take a step back and watch from afar, like seeing people's reactions to, because obviously the thing was not, it wasn't pretty. You know what I mean? Students rigged up something to just work. But there were people coming up there like, man, when is this going to be available? Like, when are you going to have like something I can actually pay for? So I saw a bunch of people coming up there asking those questions or having interest in it. Like the booth was full for the most part throughout the day. So I noticed that like people would buy what I had envisioned, even in that rough state. They saw what the potential was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the students had like a board up. They had like all of these different all the information and how it can be used and things like that. And so people saw that bit, like people can see where I was going with that vision for the product, and that showed me something. The second thing, the third thing was I saw that I could take what we had and um, Georgia Tech was the right group to actually work with because those students were being advised by a professor that I looked into him and actually reached out to him. That's what we're working with now, obviously, as you know. But that he could take it to the next level for us. He had the capabilities. Georgia Tech had the resources to make that happen, and that they would be a great partner for what we were trying to do. And yeah, and he further emphasized that what I had envisioned was possible, and we could scale this and make this the next big thing. You know what I mean? But yeah, there was a lot of lessons learned, and based on the white papers that the students did, there was a lot of things I learned. There was a lot of ideas that I generated from what they and the students taught me, and that's what I throughout this process I'm trying to learn from everybody, as you are as well. Like everybody that kind of comes into this, and especially that we don't have a technology background, people we're constantly learning. So the students taught me a lot about what the possibilities were, and it kind of it pushed me more to like get this done, but also to innovate even further. They threw out ideas and I generated ideas, and that was, that's what an MVP is supposed to be, and that's what you're supposed to take out of the experience.
And obviously, MVP. I don't know if all MVPs are done this way, but at least ours was. I know that was, working with a group of students, maybe PhD
Hmm.
students, maybe even in some cases like undergrad students.
Yeah.
And we've worked with students a lot throughout, our company's lifetime. What is, you know, what is the, I guess, attraction or um, benefit to working with people that are students that aren't necessarily super experienced, or like people that have years of experience in the industry, and like should people be afraid of working with students? Should people, trust students? How has your experience been in that regard?
Personally, I like students. It's obviously got to find the right students, but I like students because they haven't been the world hasn't basically beaten them up, and their minds are still fresh. They're open to new ideas. Like somebody that's a seasoned engineer or seasoned anything in life. They kind of been through to the fire and through the trials, and so they're more apt to probably say no. I don't know if we could do this. I don't know if that's possible. I love students because their minds are open, and there's like there's no limit on what they can do or what they believe is possible if you find the right students, as I said before. But yeah, you have somebody that's open minded. There's in technology, there's always something new that's popping up, new coding language, new manufacturing processes, new materials, new ways to kind of to calculate things. And so, a lot of times you're getting some of these fresher minds, some of these students that are more, they've seen kind of new ways of doing things. They're not, this is my way or the highway. I'm not gonna, they're more open to try new things, and they're exposed to kind of the newer ways of doing things. It's kind of like me coming to you with some of the new social media platforms I don't know about. You can tell me how to work them and how to, you know what I mean? It's the same thing with engineering and students, like, and you can kind of also mold them, into what you want from them. You can kind of mold their mind into building and helping you create what your vision is. I would say more so, but no ill will towards like the veterans out there. But yeah, I guess going back and answering your question, like, yeah, don't be afraid of working with students, and especially when you're building from the standpoint where you're bootstrapping. Like students are amazing, and they'll get you where you need to be. But obviously finding the right students, like I said before.
Yeah, I mean, I can second that. Obviously, I wasn't there for the MVP students that you worked with, but we've worked with a couple different groups of students since then, and
Hmm.
every group of students that we've worked with has been very impressive, and has consistently exceeded our expectations. Usually, like we're like, oh, we hope they can get this done, and then all of a sudden they come in and they're like, oh, we're going to do this and this and then, it's like, where the hell did these people come from? But
Yeah,
um,
and you never know who you may hire or who may latch on with the company, and then as your vision's growing and these people kind of students kind of come in and help you, um, that they grow with the product and with the company. So um, I know you're looking at the corner of your eyes. The dog making moves over there.
it's just walking around.
You look like somebody's about to jump through the window or something. That's you. I just want the audience
Yeah.
to know, no, you're not being attacked. Blink twice if you're all right. So.
Um, but yeah, no, and then um, as far as getting an MVP done and like getting something in your hand, how did that feel when you finally had something that was a physical thing that you could show off to people and show to people? Like, what was that experience like versus in the past before having an MVP? It was just kind of like telling people what you wanted to do.
Yeah, it was incredible because I knew it was like the first stage. It was like one of the first stages of what what I eventually wanted to be the product ready, the commercial version of the product. So it's like it was ugly, like I said before. It was like it didn't function all that well. The the refresh rate on the damn devices on the boards they had was like, eesh, it was rough. But I was like, this is what MVP is supposed to be. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Is the students didn't spend a ton of money. You know what I mean? I sponsored the research. I didn't really pay a lot. Um, this is what it's supposed to be. You know what I mean? For me, it was like this is the humble beginning. This is this represents what the future of what the company is going to be and what this product's going to be. And so, like I said, once we kind of get things out, I would love to show. We've talked about it before. A timeline of when I had a piece of paper that I mocked up to be a device to the MVP to the, you know what I mean, through all of its stages and phases. It's I really want to do that because it's like such a great reflection point. It's like it's an emotional thing as well. You know what I mean? Seeing it and seeing where you started and where we are now, and all the hard work and effort we've all had to put into it to get it to where it is now, and from what it was at that point. Um, yeah. So
No, I completely agree. I think, uh,
the dog's making a
getting
cameo.
to what?
Is the dog making
Yeah,
a cameo? I thought I saw him over there.
yeah. I think I saw the table somewhere. I don't know where he went.
We're
Um,
animal. We're animal people and dog lovers, so we don't mind him being on there.
but no, and then uh, has there been um like obviously that was a lot of the MVP was done, and you've talked a little bit about the product side of it.
Hmm.
I think I don't know if we've mentioned this to our users, but in addition to the device that we were working on, there's also going to be a software component to it.
Yeah.
Um, was there a software component to the MVP version as well?
Yeah, we
And
have
how did that kind of
tablets.
work? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, no. Yeah, there was tablets on the display table where they were doing everything. So yeah, there was a display, and that's why I was saying the refresh rate on the board, like when
Mhm.
it was generating like data or reading like reading movement, the accelerometer and gyroscope. It was like bare bones, like the cheapest thing you could probably buy. So it was like somebody would make a movement, and yeah, it wouldn't show like for like probably like 10 seconds, but it did, it served its purpose. It did its job, and like I said, people were able to kind of see what the vision was and what it could become, and most of all, we had the user experience because you know how our device functions and what our user experience is. The students did that, and so people got to experience that and like, oh, cool, like man, if this was possible, man, I'd use it. Or like I used to train, back in 2015, man. If I had this back in my day, I would, we got a lot of those type of responses. But yeah, it was eye opening. It was eye opening. It was a blessing, man, and it was like it still like harkens back. I know we talk about it all the time, like how much hard work and how much effort and what all goes into devices that we kind of neglect. Like even like picking up my headphones or picking up my phone or even I think this spec Lambo the other day. This is spec Lambo. Like I go on to spec cars because I love cars, but dream car, not this particular Lambo, but all of them started with like a prototype. Even the car I'm showing you right now, it was a clay design. Like it's started off as something on paper, and then somebody took a clay formation of it, made it, and then all of a sudden all the pieces started to come together, and all the components and all the engineering and software development had to happen, and you know they had probably something ugly, to start off with, just like the ugly thing that I kind of had that was the MVP. But it's just everything starts somewhere, and it has to start in some type of form, and then it grows into. It's almost like a butterfly. It's ugly, ugly centipede or caterpillar or whatever type of ugly worm or whatever, and then all of a sudden it sprouts out into a beautiful butterfly, and that's what we did. And like I said, it was an ugly thing, and it's sprouting out into being this beautiful, beautiful thing that's going to change the world.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I mean, that's all the questions that I really had prepared. Was there anything else that you wanted to mention with regards to MVPs and that process, and anything that you want to share with users about, or our followers about our process, or about just if they want to go after that process, anything like that?
One, I would say reach out to us. Like we want interaction on our the social media. We want interaction on our like YouTube and anywhere we post this podcast. We want interaction. So you know, it's a process where you just learn as you go. You know what I mean? I'm still learning. Every day we're learning something new, but feel free to reach out and talk to us and ask us how it went or ask us how we started. Like, cool thing is like, there was a guy from the minor, Dwight. that has like a, you remember Dwight. He has like a group of young men that he's mentoring, and Dwight Thompson. He's
Yep.
mentoring and trying to get them, more business minded, and like trying to keep them out of trouble, things like that. And he's had a couple of the kids reach out to me, and I love sharing the stories with them. I love like telling them what I've learned. And so, like, anybody that wants to interact with us, like, please feel free to do so. Like, yeah, like, we're not, like I said, we're not like other companies where you're probably never going to talk to the people, or they'll never be in the store where you're buying the product. We're different. And our product's different. We're different. The user experience, everything's different. We're breaking the mold essentially of the technology and the way people interact with technology and the way companies interact with consumers. So yeah, feel free to reach out. As far as people and anybody that wants to do anything similar, or like have a vision for something, or always want to create a product, don't hesitate to start. You know what I mean? The process of doing the MVP with the students, Georgia Tech or any university, the students need the work first of all, and they're wanting to learn and they want to try new things. You know, go out and do it. It's expensive. You know what I mean? Go out and utilize the students. Like I said, they need projects. Utilize their help to see if your vision and what you want to build is possible, and also too, like if it is, like you're getting a head start. You know what I mean, for a very low cost. So just don't hesitate. Just reach out to what For me, it was like finding out which school had the best capabilities to do what I envisioned, and Georgia Tech happened to be that school. But yeah, whatever you're trying to do, find the university or the college that can do that best, and just reach out and reach out to the graduate program, and yeah, just see if you can get some students to work on it. They'll give you a form, you fill it out, tell them what you want to do, and if they accept your project, you're in. And you just kind of it gives you also the ability to manage kind of for the first time if you haven't done that. You can manage the project. You're like a product manager at that point. You're managing the talent. You're answering questions. You're making connections for them to people, because they do like a lot of a lot of customer interviews and things like that. You're on your way. You're starting a process, so that's gonna help mold you for the latter stages. And that's how I was able to kind of communicate with you a little bit better, and bring you in and craft a role. And it's very similar to the students, and obviously on a higher level with you. But yeah, just get out there and get started, and don't hesitate to start building your dream today.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I think you brought up a good point too. That for the students, it's one of the hardest things. When people graduate and they first start looking for a job, every job is like, we want someone with experience, and
Hmm.
it's like, how am I supposed to get experience? That like, you get experience from working a job. So it's like, for the students, they're getting an ability to get experience without, before they're going to look for a job. That way, when they do go to that next stage where they're looking for employment or whatever, whether it's through the company that they did an MVP for or
Hmm.
through, something else, they have something on their resume that's like, hey, I did this. I was a part of this team, and I helped develop this MVP and things like that. That's huge for in terms of, something that you can have on your resume and things like that. So not only is it advantageous for the company and for someone who's trying to bootstrap, but it's advantageous for the people that you're using as well, because they're getting an addition, like they're getting benefits out of it too, whether it's white papers, projects, experience, things like that.
Yeah, no, I love those students, man. They were great. Like, I had a good relationship with them. It was fun. The working with them was fun. And then too, like, one of the greatest things was to be able to give back to them and like write a letter of recommendation if they were going to like try to get their doctorate, or like they were trying to go for a job. So you're also giving back to them as well. And yeah, you're on your way. Just reach out to these different universities and their research groups, and yeah, get some student help and build that MVP, because it's the start to what it's basically the first kind of gadget or widget that you have to kind of take out into the market, test and validate it, and then build from. So just do it. That's the and a very important step.
Yeah. I completely agree. Um, and I also agree with what you said. We want to engage with people. We love talking to people. That's why we do this podcast. That's why we want our company to be an open company where people can kind of learn from us and talk to us, and
Hmm.
not just be hiding behind walls and walls of people. Like, obviously, me and you are both busy people. Just anyone within our company is busy. We don't want people to think that we're not busy, but we also at the same time want to be able to communicate with people who are interested in us or interested in our vision and uh, in our journey. So feel free for anyone who's listening right now to reach out and try to engage with us, because we would love to share more and talk more, and we're going to continue to do this podcast. So if you like this kind of content, keep watching.
Yeah, and that goes to technologists, people that are tech nerds or early adopters. That goes out to people, kind of our first area that we're bringing this technology, athletes or people, and just people that want to be the best version of themselves. Because that's the goal of this company, is to build a better humanity through technology, through its uses, through data, and have people being healthier, being stronger, being more confident in themselves, and that's what this is all about. So if that's what you're about, then connect with us and comment, like, and just follow our journey, and be one of those first early adopters to integrate our technology in your life, because it's gonna really revolutionize the way you think about technology, the way you use it, and yeah, it's like nothing else out there. And we're really excited and pumped to kind of just start bringing it out and showing it to people and testing it and getting people's feedback. It's going to be amazing. So thank you guys for another amazing episode, and like, comment, subscribe. um, and hope you guys have a great productive week. Hope this podcast was informational and helpful for you. And yeah, we hope you guys have a great weekend as well. So with that being said, thank you. Bye bye.